or 20 teams in the league. We are missing one team out here today, but no pins. R3RE Racing, 31 points. The Wheeze World Elite Zwifters on 28. Dutch Racing sitting in 13th. They've got 26. We've got then Turbo in 14th, Kiss Racing Team in 15th, Legion of LA with 18 points, Trinity Road Racing with 17th with 14 points, and then Australian Hump Day Ride Team 8 AHDR in 18th with Team Skyline, rounding out our top 19 teams. So that's where it stands right now for the Zwift Racing League, moving into our second team time trial here today out on Magnificent 8.
Yeah, and I'm in this in 8 here. I think that it's going to be very key who is brought to the table. Sometimes you put a couple of riders on the bench depending on what is their talents, and you bring other riders depending on what they can actually do for the day. And the team time trial today is going to take a very specific type of rider. We were talking a little bit before the broadcast, the reality of that reverse KOM having a very significant juncture out on course. It's going to be a pinch point, Dave, because whether or not you're able to make it over the top in the men's race, in my opinion, 6 to 7 watts per kilogram, full gas for a win, because you're not holding back. So that's going to be interesting if they brought the right horses for courses, as you would say.
Yeah, I mean, really, the name of the game here is trying to keep the team together, certainly over that significant sector of the race. Once you get down inside a 5K to go today, you got to get over that last little hiccup there, and then that run into the finish. You can afford to sacrifice that rider, and that might be the difference here. The strategy, the tactics, they're going to be at a very, very high level as we take a look at the course, Nathan.
Yeah, and there is that Watopia Hill reverse, as you can say. That will be the first checkpoint. We're looking at 29.1 kilometers, 18.1 miles, 131 meters of elevation, 430 feet. First time check, as you can see that we're going to be looking at that Watopia climb. Then they're heading on over to the flats for a time check at the Rock Arch, followed up by a time check over at the gas station. Then we're looking at another one over at the Dome, the old Jarvis Tree Dome, with not a whole lot of time yet to go, but really those climb points, those pinch points over the top of the reverse KOM. Then we're looking at the little undulation at the Oasis there in the middle of Fuego Flats, and then the gas station right before the climb into Titans Grove. Those are really going to be points I think that the teams are going to be really thinking about. Then the rest of it is homework, whether or not you know how to ride a team time trial, Dave.
Yeah, so let's take a look at some of the teams, Nathan, that made their mark already. Canyon Esports, this is a monster squad, and they're back with the A-team. Alex West, Gary Mueller, Lionel Viasen, Stephen Young, and Philip Deigner. These are the jerseys to be watching out for out there today. Teams will be starting based on their seeding in the standings overall. So that means that we'll be looking for the top teams to be heading out on course last. Again, we've got some great checkpoints to look at how things are going out there for the squads. This one is going to be an absolute Donnybrook out on Watopia here today. I really do look at that reverse hilly KOM. What the teams look like as they go past that point of the course, Nathan, is going to be very, very interesting, and really will be forbearing on how their day will finish.
Yeah, the shout out there is definitely going to be to, as you said, Canyon Esports upper left there. Then you're going to be looking at that yellow, white, and green jersey, Sarsa Pros Closet. Be on the watch out for that one there. Those are the top two teams, but also Bolt Racing Team, that black and gray in the upper right there, as well as PO Auto Ceramic Speed right next to it. Evoke and Arrow, other ones to be watching out for that might be trying to work their way into a top 3 situation. Bolt Racing Team in the first team time trial came out of nowhere and grabbed the second place. So will they be able to, do that again or even take the top spot? Peel Auto not performing where I would think they would, but we'll see if they can this week, as they have been so strong on Thursdays in the community racing for TTTs. So, amazing. There are all the teams. Be on the watch out for your favorites out there as well. Let us know in chat who your favorites might be as we get them out on screen. Always great to hear who people are cheering for in the live stream. So we are going to be jumping on to course here in just a moment, I believe. As the first team off the ramp, we'll have to be waiting to see who we are going to be looking at here. As we'll also be having some splits. Obviously, the first one looking for that reverse KOM, but they will be heading on over toward the volcano first with a little bit of a flatter race up front, Dave. And at that point, really, there's a funny thing about starting a TTT. I've been doing them recently, and I think it's amazing how much it's still all out from the get-go in order to really get your speed up to full gas from, it's all about speed, and you can lose seconds if you don't just start fast to begin with.
All right, we are locked and loaded, folks. Welcome to round 4 of the Zwift Racing League as we're out on course. And exactly what Nathan is talking about when you talk about bringing it up to speed, well, you got to stall the beans a little bit here, boys. Make sure all the bags are on board the train because you got to link up. So you kind of got to go fast. You kind of got to smooth and steady your way into that. And it looks like Team AHDR, this is an Australian-based team here, Australian Hump Day Ride. And there you go. They are now in formation, Nathan, ready to fly.
Yeah, AHDR, it looks like as they exit the Italian village, they're going to be heading on over to their first real challenge out on course. There's going to be the reverse KOM. As you can see, we're looking at Nozaki here coming out of Japan. And now we're looking at World Elite Zwifters, it looks like, as they make their way over toward the exact same section. They're also just leaving the Italian village. A little bit of a riser here. These little bumps really is about holding onto the wheel of the front rider as they're going to be that's AHDR still, I believe, here, as we're now heading on over toward the Ocean Boulevard here. As we're looking at HDR on the bottom there with the camera. So this taking a right-hand turn. No, they're going to continue on forward here toward the KOM now. As we're looking at Nozaki on the back end of this train. Looks like a little bit of gaps opening up here. Nozaki not getting the best draft. And that's going to be, I believe this is going to be Team Skyline as they hit they may be the first team here heading on to the reverse KOM.
Yeah, so you start with 5 riders. However, not all teams made it to the line with 5 here today. Skyline, an American-based team, that's a diabetic friend, type 1 diabetic. Justin McQuarrie on screen. Adam Carr, Andrew Scott, and Parker Kaiser are the other riders that make up this squad. But it looks like they're down to 3. So, Nathan, they have no wiggle room at all out there for this squad. So that's a tough way to start things off with only 3 riders. Let's see what they can do. If they can find their way into the top 10, that's as good as gold out there when you consider that they're starting with this 3-rider handicap. Adam Carr and Parker Kaiser, the other 2 brave riders.
Going to be a rough day. Already up in 183 beats per minute, 421 watts. As you can see, 5.5 watts per kilogram currently coming from McQuarrie there. Parker Kaiser there, 6.1. Now, this is the kind of pace that they're going to have to hold all the way to the top. Around that 5 to 6 watts per kilogram is looking at a sub 4-minute climb at 6.1. Adam leading things out. And to be anywhere near challenging some of these top teams, I think that's what they're going to have to be pulling off here. Even up as you see Carr here as they take on that 11% gradient now. This is going to be the seconds moments here. It's going to be interesting to see what the top teams pull as they're really pushing up into that 7 watts per kilogram.
Well, and here's an interesting thing to think about as we make our way into the middle part of the Zwift Racing League here, is that the top 2 teams from the community leagues will be promoted up into the Premier League. The bottom 2 teams in this league are demoted. So there's not only a battle to be in the top 3, top 5, top 10, there's a battle to not be at the bottom of the barrel. And that's why a team like Skyline really has to fight here. This is an important ride for them, Nathan. They can't afford to give up any points as we're now jumping in with the KISS Racing Team, the mighty KRT. And we get to be in camera with a few of their riders as well. Tade Sedar there. Look at the watts. He's putting up nearly 400 watts there. As they have a 4 riders. Good to see Sam Greenhawk, Rob Britt, Andrew Hodden, and Elliot Holt making up. So again, these teams are starting on 1-minute intervals here. So we will see some teams being caught and passed in actually relatively early, I would imagine, when you look at some of the teams starting with just 3. There's another team, Trinity Racing, also starting with 3 riders here today. And that's a tough way to start the race. And it's actually, there you go, our first catch being made right now, Nathan. That's what you're up against when the teams have nearly twice as many riders as you.
Yeah, I believe the KISS Racing Team may be catching Trinity, if I'm not incorrect there, as I'm looking at the jerseys. I believe that is Trinity Racing just being caught and passed very cleanly, though, as that's exactly how it needs to be done. No drafting on the other team, as it looks like Greenlog, they're going to be the last one across 147. Now they're going to be heading into that reverse KOM. Again, one of the first pinch points. It's going to be all about from bottom to the top. Nobody, there is some drafting, though, And I think that for the team members that don't have the full-on 6 to 6.5 all the way over the top, because that's what you need to do as the leaders. You can hide a little bit, though, on some of the sections of this climb because it's not a uphill gradient the entire time. There's actually some flats as well as some downhills. Get a reprieve during those sections and just hold on to the strongmen at the front. Give 2 or 3 the reins and let them go.
Well, and here is a really good moment as we hang with KRT right now. So this team is doing a tremendous job here where the stronger riders aren't gapping their teammates. Interesting view here is it looks like Trinity might have just started with 2 riders out here today, or at least they're down to 2 right now. So that's a tough situation as these guys will start to actually, as long as you're not taking the draft, which they're not, you're fine to pace off of this team, and that might help them a little bit, kind of keep their heads above water because this team is going to start to really pin it now. This is a really good look, Nathan, at how the formation can change. Now we're going into single file formation. Let's see, who do we have here? I believe this is going to be Turbo,
here
that we're looking at. It is.
Yeah, and the purple and black here, as you can see. And it's going to be Spencer Sagerbrook there, Tanner Ward, as well as Dominic Wilson. Sagerbrook, very strong rider, one of the riders that was in the live finals down in Long Beach, California, actually qualifying and then winning the sprint across the line there. So Sagerbrook there, he's got a kick. Now we'll have to see if it can pay off in a team time trial, holding second wheel there at 500 watts right now. It looks like Ward there at 158, maybe a low max heart rate or perhaps saving a little bit of something as the leader currently. Maybe backing off to make sure they're not dropping off Dominic Wilson now as Wilson pushes the pace. Only 3 riders, though. It's going to be a tough day because those extra bodies matter so much for taking poles and resting. That's for sure, Dave.
Yeah, so again, this is a unique format of racing, the team time trial, that nearly, like the dinosaur, became extinct. But because of WTRL and this really, really unique worldwide movement to this discipline, especially during the last 6 months, has become a lot of people's favorite way to race. And I'm so happy to see it included in the ZRL format. Half of the races that we do are team time trialing. So the team format is at an all-time high right now. As Nathan mentioned, 3 riders. Now, the most that you can start with is 5. That's ideal. And most of the teams, certainly in our top 10, I think every team, we'll have to take a look, but I'm going to guess that every team that gets into the top 10 today is going to have 5 riders on that squad. Now, that doesn't mean that they'll finish with 5. However, by the time this is done and dusted, just inside of 30 kilometers out here today, make it really 29, you're going to see a lot of teams finishing with 3 riders. As a matter of fact, that can be a very good sign for your team. And I was talking about that earlier, the fact that if you really, really want to win, you're going to be on that razor's edge, and you're probably going to have to sacrifice a rider in the last few K. Another, it looks like, team being caught here. No pins, R3R. And let's see what we've got. Or is this just one team? Again, 5 riders making up a squad, and it is going to be no pins altogether. I guess their flags there threw me off for a moment. Scott Gleason, Neil Richards, Chris Smart, Klaas van Oudenaard, and Zach Harner making up this very competitive team. Nathan, we're looking at a team that should be riding up inside the top 5 here today.
Yeah, be on the watch out for this team. This is the team that I think has been a little bit frustrated with their results because they've got a top sprinter in Scott Gleason for sure. Gleason is very, very strong rider here, and perhaps just trying to put things together. I have a feeling between the 5 of them, in the last couple of weeks. So perhaps today they might see a breakout ride from No Pins because they're currently sitting in 11th overall. We did see them with a 14 and as well as 13 pointers, so somewhere in the 6th to 7th place in the last couple of races. They had a very bad first round. Maybe a team that's going to try and work their way back into the top 10 throughout the 8 races here in this Premier League. But they do see Smart dropping off a little bit. He's going to have to kick now as Chris Smart maybe make his way to the back. 185 beats per minute at 6.5 watts per kilogram. There's Vadenad there, makes his way to the front. He's really pressing the pace. There's that 7 watts per kilogram I was talking about over the top. Take the speed through. It's all about momentum. They need to not slow down as Richards pulls that speed right on through, and that's what it's about. It's not just power. The power creates the speed, but as you get into these momentum sections, make sure you carry it. You slow down at the front at all, or even the rider who's pulling through, you will end up slowing the entire team down. Gleason looks like is hanging on as well as Smart, and as I was saying, it's going to be 3 riders that are most likely carry them over the top, and the other ones that are more your powerhouses on the flats, pure rulers, probably just hang on as they now make their way through the second half of this climb.
There's not a significant amount of climbing on this course. If you looked at this shot right here, you'd think that I was joking, but it's only 131 meters throughout the entirety of the race today. That translates in old money to 430 feet of climbing. So it's not nothing, but it's not a tremendous amount. Now, here's a team to watch. This is a team in the hunt for the overall as we take a look at the mighty Bolt Racing team here with George Martindale, Nicky Hug, the Swiss rider on the team, Huel Davies, the Welsh rider, Will Budge, and Sieben Welling, the Dutch rider. Really strong team, Nathan. These guys have cracked the code on how to ride a team top. As a matter of fact, if you want to go ahead and see a team that is riding it nearly perfectly, the gap's maybe a little bit big at the back end, and that's where they're going to try to fill this one in. That's that gap that you're going to try to weld back. As now we're looking at, that's going to be Skyline being caught and passed out here now, Nathan. So we're seeing a lot of that going on right now. Another clean pass, however, that's always nice to see.
Yeah, it looks like HDR was the team that overtook them into Fuego Flats, as they're going to be coming into the checkpoints into the Oasis in just a moment here. Team HDR taking over. We see Nozaki at the back here. This is still Skyline at the bottom of the screen, but at the top there, it is going to be the HDR team with Jeffrey Creel really pressing the pace. It looks like 7 watts per kilogram at the front. Jaron Walker as well. And trying to gain as much speed through this section as possible, maybe because of a little bit of separation here, as Partridge here is trying to come back together. Now, at the back of this group, Creel needs to pull the rest of the riders in here, as this is some disorganization, mainly from allowing gaps to go, because you do not want this speed to slow down. If the riders at the front slow down, all of the momentum that these other riders that are at the back, if they don't just go straight to the front as they make the catch and they just sit under the wheel, that's going to be 3 to 4 kilometers per hour lost through a section. So right now, this needs to be 3 riders who get together and just shut it down to their front riders, but that's probably going to be a pole turn wasted. So that rider, that second wheel at the front there, he's going to have to be just waiting to take a pole, essentially, I think. Well, he's going to have to take it for the team here in just a moment, Dave.
Every moment that you have 3 different riders fighting the wind, you're not doing it right. That's the issue here, is that you can see at the front, back to the 3rd rider and to the 5th rider, they're all fighting the wind. You only want 1 rider to be fighting the wind. That's the secret to team time trialing. They're going to weld it back together, and right now, so what Nathan is saying is, rather than having the guys on the front slow down, now push through, and that's what they're trying to do here. So this is the battle. This is the give and the take that is team time trialing. If this were easy, everybody would do it. It's far from easy, and Nathan, my heart goes out to those riders at the back of the group that you're talking to, or back of the team that you're talking to, because they're already feeling the pain, right? And the mental anguish as well of letting the team down. So this is not ideal, sub-ideal, what we're looking at right now with it splitting again in the team. And this is where you really do talk about just everybody getting back on the same page and then bring it up back to speed. We almost need to hit a little bit of a reset button at some point, or at least psychologically, and now they've got it back. So you're really, really watching the ebb and the flow of a team time trial effort out here. This sport is really, really hard to figure out.
Dutch Racing Team, it looks like leading split number 2. That's going to be the split over the reverse KOM with a 15:45. KISS Racing Team there at a 16:20. Only a 1 second difference between that KISS Racing Team and AHDR2. Turbo, Skyline then. There big separations there between Skyline and Turbo. Turbo can still bring back some time, but with only a shortage of riders there, that's most likely what's making the difference there. What I'm really thinking about here is going to be that Bolt Racing Team as well as PO Auto Ceramic and Aero, as they're going to be the next ones coming through. I believe Bolt, especially, be on the watch out for Bolt and what kind of time they pull on over the top of that reverse KOM. I believe we're looking maybe at Dutch Racing here yep, that's going to be the Dutch Racing Team here, as we see Kemper taking a little bit of rest after his pull at the front.
So this check coming in just inside of 10 kilometers in. You're going to see it go well under 15. I'm going to say under 15:20 to tell you the truth. Dutch Racing putting a much faster time up there right now at 15:46. But we have reverse seeded the start here. So the final team will be Canyon Esports out on course. They're our defending champion. They won the last team time trial, and they're our leading team in this 8-race series. series that's points based. So here we go. It looks like we're in with Saris the Pros Closet, if I'm reading those lemons and limes correctly out there, Nathan. Another team that we're certainly highlighting as a squad to watch out here today. And I'm wondering, so this is Matt Brandt, Ryan Larson, David Talbot, Gavin Dempster, the Scottish rider, and Mike Cumming. And I'm wondering, I see the Scottish flag there. I'm wondering, who are we missing from? It looks
Dempster.
like only four.
Dempster.
It's Dempster.
Dempster's going to be there. Yeah, it is Gavin Dempster, Matt Brown out of the U.S. there. Rider I used to train with plenty out the local dock ride, actually. So good to see Brandt here in the front end of the group right now. Mike Cuming, one of the strong riders there last week, who was trying to take down that win from Thrall. But now it is going to be one of the riders that was dropped. Yeah, so what happened there is it looks like I'm reading that the rider that is not present had a technical difficulty, I think a crash there. So they are down to 4 again. Unlucky for this team, second week in a row here where a little bit of a mishap. So we'll see what they can pull off here to try and bring this back. They're still a very strong team. We saw Canyon Esports pull it off with one less rider. So can they match that kind of an effort we saw from Canyon Esports? Take it for fuel for the fire, throw it in there, put some gas on the fire with that kind of anger, and just give it to the end here. We'll see if they can make it happen.
No Pins R3R now the fastest check at 9.6K with a 15:43, just a couple seconds fast. You can see how close this is. I was anticipating that we would see 3 teams within 10 seconds of each other at the finish. That might play out this way. It's about a third of the way in. You can see how close this is to the Australian team Arrows. They've now come through that check with a 15:49. That's only 8 seconds out of the time that we saw from No Pins R3R at 15:41. But there you go. Now it's deadlock. So you will see as the back-end API kind of settles in there with the server, some changes on just a few second variations here, but it looks like we're going to say that 15:43 for No Pins R3 are the fastest time up to this point, Nathan. I do expect it to be a little quicker than that when we see, well, Saris or certainly Canyon coming through. That's going to be Canyon that we're looking at right now. This monster team absolutely rolling now, Nathan. But they also down to 4 riders. Just about every team has had some kind of mishap or another. You got to respond to these tough situations in the early going.
Yeah, and man, it's too bad to see if that is the situation. You did see they got it done though in the first go of the racing on the TTT in round number 2. So Canyon Esports, we've seen it do it before. Most likely be able to do it again. Not sure if they. Looks like Alex West, Lionel V. Austin there, Stevie Young, Philip Diner, and Gary Mueller. Now Stevie Young, his talents are definitely sprinter talents, so I think maybe he may have been a match to burn early on. I'm not sure he would have made it over the back end of this KOM if they're going full gas with this team. So that's not the worst loss. Now, but Saris the Pros Closet, currently sitting second overall in the series in the league, they lost Ryan Larson, which is a whole different story because that is a full-on FTP monster, climbing monster that they lost. So Stevie Young being lost from Canyon Esports, not as big of a deal. He's more of just going to be punching things for them and trying to get those momentums until he can maybe drop off. He'd probably be the rider that would drop off in this kind of an effort. Now, though, Saris Pros Closet losing Larson, that's a major blow. We're looking at Dutch Racing now still.
Yeah, and they just went by, I believe that was the KRT riders that we saw, or a couple of riders from the KRT team. This is the rest of the team just up the road that they're about to make the catch on here. Dutch Racing powerhouse squad here. Mick Kemper, Joost van den Bosch, Rick Otema, Bas Pater, and Jasper Okerloon is the squad, and they are firing on all cylinders out here, Nathan. And this is a good example now. A little bit of adrenaline kicks in when you're making the pass, but also it's like the hunter and the hunted. The hunted feels a little bit of adrenaline too here. So always the etiquette in the sport is this team makes a clean pass. You don't want any cross-pollination between these teams. That really goes against the sporting code of what team time trialing is all about. So the answer here is for the Dutch to step on it a little bit. KRT just to lay back, and it's so hard to ask world-class athletes to lay back, and it looks like we're not having as clean of a pass as we would like. Not too
Yeah,
bad.
we're going to see if Dutch Racing can get on by here, but it's going to be Team Turbo that's trying to hang on as best they possibly can there to their speed, but they need to back off. They are being caught, so as Dutch Racing comes on through. Diner here now as they come over the top of the reverse KOM is leading things out, and that's going to be a full gas effort as Mueller looks to hang on. Viasen looks third wheel, the duck, and then it's going to be Alex West, the Kiwi here on the back end as Mueller pulls on through the South African as they get into the perfect momentum over the top there. You see how Diner, he drove the pace over that little undulation. This is one of the downhill sections on the reverse KOM. He's just going to go ahead and try and take his speed to grab back on, but Mueller pulled through with all that momentum and did not slow down one bit, even if it wasn't his turn at the front. It looked like it was a pretty clean situation. Now Diner, look, he took that momentum right back to the front, and he's not going to necessarily slow down. So, now Viasen sees he's got to plug that hole. The momentum. That's what it's all about. Speed is still king. It's not just about the watts and the watts per kilogram. You got to watch what the speeds are as you pull through. Viasen did the perfect job there to say, no, do not slow down, kick to the front, and kept everybody in that straight line.
You could not be doing a better job. This was a command performance this is why Canyon Esports is the #1 team in the world right now. It doesn't get sweeter than what we're looking at. Viasen, the Belgian rider, the duck up on the front here. But as Nathan said, you can see that anytime even the smallest of cracks starts to form, they fill it in immediately. And that's the name of the game here. Keep the speed high. Keep coming up over the top. Don't let those gaps get big. You don't want to watch a grass fire turn into a structure fire, and that's what happens to so many teams out here, is that once the problem starts, there's the ripple effect. It gets worse and worse. Not with Canyon here, as this would be for a lot of teams. We'd race, this will be the 81st week of racing coming up on the WTRL on Thursday. For the teams that want to figure out how to do this, watch this video. And now it looks like we're going to jump in with the Australian Aero Squad. I love this jersey. This team has some big engines, Nathan. They're going to have a breakthrough ride. It very well could be happening here today. This squad looks like they are in fuego right now.
Yeah, it does look like Harley Moore was pulling through at about 6 to 7 watts per kilogram, now making his way to the back. Look at how he drops back there. Perfect way to just get right off the front and let it be taken over. It looks like it's being Nick Scolari there up at a 5.5 watts per kilogram trying to carry things on through. Now they're going to be traveling at that 5.5 to 5.8. My guess is most likely 47 to 48 kilometers per hour on this section of course. I think, though, for a winning time, a team like Canyon Esports, they're going to be pulling 49 to 51, most likely pushing 50 even through these sections. So I would hope that we're going to see somebody like Ben Hill, Sam Hill punch through here at this point if they're looking for a top time to try and take down that Bolt Racing team, as well as Canyon Esports and Sarge Post Closet that I'm expecting to be toward the top. But it's going to be no pins here. I said they might have a breakthrough ride up into that 15:41. Dutch Racing there taken down by, it looks like, 4 seconds as they come through that through that first checkpoint here one by one. It's very tight racing, though, as we can see all across between all the times. It's actually going to be Bolt Racing team I'm seeing as we need an update on the splits here a little bit. 15:20 was the last time that we can see as the fastest time. I think we're just getting a little bit of a mix-up on the current standings amongst them, but I believe Bolt Racing team is leading things out currently.
Yeah, I was expecting to see something right in that neighborhood, and Bolt comes in as one of the teams to beat, no doubt about it. They're a top 3 squad all day long as we now jump in with the Callus Esport Racing team here. Another team that you expect big things from as we take a look at them, and all 5 together. First off, that's a good sign, Nathan.
Yeah, it does look like that. We'll see if they can pull something off here. They've struggled in the TTT, which has been interesting to me because they have such strong individual performances a lot of times. We'll see if they can try and put something together here as we see Fagerly there off it all in second wheel. Very good sprinters. They know how to Zwift. They know how to find themselves at the front end of a race a lot of times in a sprint situation, but I haven't seen it translate necessarily into the TTT as we see 5-4, now 6-6 toward the front here as Vidar, I think, is starting to take over and trying to push that pace. He's going to be that reigning Norwegian national champion of Zwift here as Vidar now pushes that pace probably into that 50 kilometers per hour as we see him pressing up into 7 or so watts per kilogram. They're going to be coming into their next checkpoint at the gas station here as they leave Titans Grove in just a few moments.
It is really interesting to watch the heart rate of the riders, and you can see with the different physiology of each athlete here. Some folks run a little lower, some folks tend to run their heart rate higher, but it's certainly interesting to watch as riders at the back of the group recover before they come up and take their pull. Now, there's really two different techniques, two different accepted techniques out there, the blob technique or this style right here. This is as old school as it gets. Single file. Riders generally, you can hear variations, and it depends on the racer, the race, the course, a lot of things, but looking for, let's use 1 minute pulls is a pretty standard number on the front. If you're a monster, the time trial specialist on your team, you might inch up to 2 minutes or maybe even more than that. If you're if you're Kristen Armstrong, you might take 3 minute pulls. But when your teammates come through, they might only take a 30-second pull. But as Nathan has alluded to, keeping the speed high. Don't bog down. If you're going to hit the front and bring the speed from 48 down to 45K, don't hit the front. Get off. Get off now. Red alert. We don't want you there. Get out, but we don't want you to go off the back of the group either. So don't make an effort. Don't write a check that your body can't cash. Right, Nathan?
Oh, 100%, 100%. So speaking of not writing checks, I heard Dave got an invite to the TTT. I wonder if we're going to be seeing Dave out there to get to take that experience with 1 to 2 minute pulls with the big dogs, with OJ on Tuesdays. It'd be great to see. So we have seen there are different tactics, that's for sure. Different teams have been employing different tactics as far as what kind of pull times. Last week or 2 weeks ago in my WTRL TTT, I've been doing it on Thursday nights. If you want to jump into a community league TTT, check it out. Get involved. Registration closed on Wednesday for that. If you want to go ahead and check this out for yourself and what it's like. Different tactics though, and we were doing 1 minute pulls for a while. We've changed it up to 30 seconds. We got a little better advantage, it seemed like, out of 30 seconds momentum pulls. They'd always try and push it toward the front, where it's almost like you get there and it's almost done already, so you can really press a very high wattage and a high speed and just get people to continue to bring that momentum like a roller coaster. But we do see Feldhager here. This is going to be that PO Auto Squad. I've been waiting for this. And look at that. 6.8, 7 watts per kilogram. This section right here is a 2% uphill gradient, actually. So there's a little bit of an advantage that you can gain over the other teams if you really press the pace here. Peterson's going to roll through after Feldhager brings that high speed over the top of that climb. Now it's a little bit of a downhill, and they're trying to roll with that speed and momentum as much as they possibly can. Solid job, it looks like, from PO Auto. I'm wondering if they're going to give us the kind of performance we've seen on Thursdays here now in the Premier League.
Well, you know what, Nathan? I think they're back. I really do. When you saw that pull that Feldhager took there, what a beast. All right, we're in with Evoke now. This is another team that is going to be getting stronger and stronger. Brian Hodges, Connor McGoldrick, Patrick Wally, Simon Collard, and last week's winner, Thomas Thrall, the Canadian, winning out there in Richmond. That was a big one for Evoke and Thomas. As we take a look at the squad now, Nathan, they look good as well. So we're getting into the meat and potatoes now, looking at some of the big teams we're expecting really strong rides for here as we go in camera with Evoke here. So Nathan, what stands out to you? These heart rates look pretty solid to me, right in the sweet spot, right? No one over 180, everybody over 160. That's where I want my team to be.
Yeah, it looks like Collard is taking his pull at this point with the Belgian rider. He's up in that 182 there. It does look like Thrall hanging on as best he possibly can at 175. Now, the interesting thing about this team, for me, this is a team that's like supporting your Cavendish rider. This is a team that's supporting their sprinter riders a lot of times. Brian Hodges, Thrall, these guys have a crazy sprint to the finish line. They sit in, they know how to Zwift well, and they know how to hide, and then put that solid kick, that huge dynamite burst that blasts at the end a lot of times. And then, I know Thrall, he's got a solid kick. He's got a solid FTP, obviously, that needs to hang on until those moments. I'm not sure they got the VO2 max over and over that needs to happen with these pull-throughs in order to take this down, but they may surprise on the day. We'll have to wait and see. But a lot of times it's Thrall and Hodges they're working forward to the line. We'll see if it's going to pay off, if it's going to translate, though, with some of this well-oiled machine that is a purely esports team. If they figured something out here, that they can bring it to the paper here and try and get a better result in the TTT.
Thomas Thrall looks like he's trying to kill his bicycle. Look at this effort right now. I mean, like, that man is channeling his inner Jan Ulrich, but I mean, Nathan, that's probably 60 RPM. He's making 440 watts. That is a human wattage. Where is he? In Canada? He's going to dim the power grid up there in the Great White North right now. What an amazing athlete. So that's Thrall, the Canadian, here with the Evo team. Nathan, I'm going to be interested to see what these splits look like here, because the big teams have all rolled through. That last time we saw 15:20 was the fastest time at 9.6K, but we're well past that now as we're starting to bear down on the finish line. It's not that long of a race. It makes it that much more painful, to tell you the truth. The shorter the distance of the team time trial, the harder the riders go, the more time you spend up in the red zone. And it really is, it's exceptional what the riders are going through at this point. We're back in with Saris, the pros closet. There's the Scottish rider, Dempster. We know that they lost one man early, but Nathan, they look like they're doing quite fine. We had a really good look inside of this team on the World of Zwift with OJ Borge just a couple weeks ago. Matt Brandt, David Talbot, Gavin Dempster, and Mike Cumming looking really strong right now. Nathan, there's no way these guys go outside the top 5. Is this good enough for the win? Becomes the question here.
Yeah, Dempster's doing a really great job of surging at the front without dropping his team, and that's how it's done there for the speed. 6.77 watts per kilogram, and everybody is sitting very well within that draft right now. They're doing this absolutely perfectly. Looks like Matt Brandt there grabbing onto the wheel as best as he possibly can here, but solid looks. 187 though. Brandt here struggling a little bit. I think he just got done with the pole, so he's going to try and bring that heart rate down from that 187. I do believe Cumming is now up for his next pole, as Dempster's going to back off here in a second, as Cumming's going to pull right on through, I believe. This looks like a well-oiled machine. They've done their homework, and I think this is going to be it. Now I think we're going to head on over to AHDR here for their finish, and this is going to be it. Nozaki here, Walker, Dowdo, Patridge there, and Madsen all coming to the line, and they're going to be up and out of the saddle. This is where you still see some orange numbers, because every last second matters, Dave.
Yeah, look at Nozaki here, digging in, bringing the entire team, stopping the clock. It's going to be really interesting. That's going to be our first fast time, a benchmark time that we'll be looking at as they finish now. Saris, the pros cloud, that's still out on course here. They've got a ways to go. They were one of our last teams to start of the 19 teams that we had in the Premier League taking the start out here today.
Yeah, we do see Dempster again after taking that monster pole. It does look like he's already sitting in third wheel. So, a lot of times it's not necessarily about being, in the last spot out there if you need to close down some gaps for the rest of your team. Even after you take a pole, sometimes you do have to assist the other team members that are struggling a little bit. Skyline now making their way to the finish line here. I believe they were the first to go out on course as the lowest seeded team, as they make their way to the finish line with only 3. It's going to be a rough day for Skyline, but solid ride there still out there today. We'll have to see what kind of time they pull in. It's going to be another sprint to the line for Skyline to grab some points and hopefully hang on to, maybe even grab a couple of extra spots out there, as, sometimes you just get reward for showing up on the day too, Dave.
Yeah, I agree, Nathan. And there's a lot in life that is to showing up and not letting it get the better of you out there. So this team, again, Adam Carr is the American rider that you can see up there on the front. They're going to finish. If they can get up, let's say 15th place, they'll pick up a few extra points. So it'll be interesting to see when we look at the table. This is a team-based race, so it's even more so on team time trial day. Next week, we'll be back into the points race format. We alternate week after week, but this is almost where you double down on the team concept in the Zwift Racing League. As speaking of doubling down, here's the Swedish team. Okay, Nathan, they look really strong, very organized, well put together, just like Sweden.
Yes. Yeah, Swedish Swift Races there now making their way through Fuego Flats. Now we're back in with Dutch Racing Team. They had one of the top times as we were heading into Fuego Flats, but it looks like they've fallen down a little bit in the leaderboards, I believe.
I really like that. They did exactly what I was talking about, Nathan. They sacrificed a rider there. They used a rider to get them a couple of seconds, and now they know the time is taken off the third rider's wheel. You don't need 4 at this point. No one's going to have any kind of issue here. So if you do, so be it. It's better to go down fighting than to lay down and let it happen to you. So they're making the race here. I love this. That was a really strong finale for the Dutch.
Solid kick here to the line. Nobody really up and out of the saddle, looks like, for the avatars here, so I think they left it all out on course, just hanging on. I believe that's going to be a top 10 ride for them, as we do see the time starting to come in here. Dutch Racing 37.25, 42 seconds back. Kiss Racing Team, Team HDR, Team Skyline 3:39 there. So that's the current situation out on course for the top 4. I have a feeling, though, that we're going to see a solid minute difference, though, for the top teams, though, comparatively. We'll have to wait and see. I am looking at a couple of the feeds coming on through here, and I do believe we've got a really, really tight race between PO Auto, Bolt Racing Team, and Canyon Esports at this point.
Well, and those are the names that you would expect to hear at the top of the tables. We're going to jump in. This should be R3R, the restart squad that we're looking at now. I'm going to guess we don't have one team finish with 5 riders out here today. Again, the maximum you could start with is 5. Time taken off of the 3rd rider's wheel. This is a pretty ideal situation right now as we look at a squad that is in full effect. They're going to make the hard right-hand turn. Finish line is less than 1 kilometer away. And this is what I've been talking about, Nathan. Here's where you do use up a rider. If you can put a guy on the front for 500 meters and just eke out another second or two, that might be the difference to make your way up into the top 3. It's going to be very, very close. As Nathan said, it is turning into a battle royale out there in the final few kilometers for our top teams. Again, it's a points-based series, so 20 points, the maximum amount that a team can take, and Canyon doesn't like to leave any crumbs on the table. PO Auto looking to have their day here today. We might see an upset at the finish line.
Yeah, and as we see, No Pins now making their way across. It's going to be, I believe, a top 5 so far. No Pins 3R, though, with a 37.06, 19 seconds ahead of Dutch Racing. World League Zwifters coming in 39 seconds behind. Dutch Racing holds on to a spot in between there. But as you can see, now the minutes start to go back, and we start to see who's really showing up for the TTTs, who the real power horses are, as well as the well-oiled machines, the ones who have done their homework. Off the dial at the back here with Callus Esports as they make their way past the dome, the old school Jarvis tree now. But there's Zorkland. He's just finishing up here. WEZ, I believe that was one of the riders that was let go. As you said, burning the matches and just letting 3 to 4 riders get to the line. Here's Evo because they make their way out of Titans Grove. That is a key section that they have just finished, and they're going to be looking for a little recovery most likely as they make their way downhill over to Oceans Boulevard.
Yeah, and this is one of the teams that I was expecting to make that quantum leap out here, Nathan, as it looks like we're going to jump back in. I believe Callus we're looking at now, and it is going to be Callus Esport Racing Team, that beautiful Norwegian flag. They're down to 3. Ofdal, Bear, and Mel, the riders that we've got left now. And they got a ways to go with just 3. So this is going to be an experience of scraping the bottom of the wattage barrel here for the Norwegians.
Yeah, it does.
And it's
like,
not. It's 4.
I
I
think they were just out of
apologize.
camera there.
Actually,
Jerkstedt and Fagerly, they're all there still
Good,
together.
good.
Yep,
Yep,
Vidar
they're all
Nails
there.
on the front here, pressing the pace. They're going to be leaving Ocean Boulevard in just a second, and it's going to be a 3% uphill gradient in just a moment. It'll be the last section leaving Ocean Boulevard, really, that they can do anything about any extra time other than just pure speed at the front. So we'll see who takes over. And, it might be a rider who's got nothing left in the tank but that kick, who's just going to give him a sprint over the top and then say, go ahead, boys, because that's all that's left. And here comes that 3% uphill gradient. We'll see who takes over for the team.
Yeah, I mean, you make a really good point, Nathan. If you've got anything left to give and you're the 5th rider, rather than hanging on, they're not going to take a time off of your wheel. Go up to the front and give one last surge, and that looks like maybe what Ulfdal's trying to do right now. So Ulfdal here, look at this, 500 watts he is making. Heart rate going up into the mid-180s. That is a superhuman effort up on. He's doing exactly what we were talking about, Nathan. Look at these numbers. He's keeping it as high as he can, as long as he can. That man is in the hurt locker, no doubt about it. They can't even quite hold his wheel. As we're going to bring this one across the line here now, I'm expecting, so again, the top teams were seeded to start last, so we're going to be looking for our best times to still be out on course right now. But Nathan, I think the Norwegians have put together a great ride out here today. This is Callus Esport. I think we might have a new fast time, to tell you the truth. This should be our new gold standard.
Fogley is going to be the racer that was unable to hold on. They just let it go. And he was the last one to take a pull through Ocean Boulevard. As you can see, 2.5 watts per kilogram currently from him. It was Christian Alftadal there, as you said, taking that pole over the top and continued on with speed, which is really impressive, actually. Vidar Mail, it was so interesting to see what a good Zwifter he is, because as they came over the top of that little rise out of Ocean Boulevard, he was actually all the way down at like 1 to 3 watts per kilogram, actually, for a second. We did get a little bit of a camera switch there for a second. That's not going to be Vidar Mail, actually, in the lower left-hand corner there. But Alftadal now, as he kicks on through again, this is going to be the rider of this team. Berg to the front there as well. Jerktheth now trying to come on through. Big kicks to the line from each one of the riders now as they look to try and take down the time. I wonder if the motivation is there today, because they have struggled in the TTT the last couple of weeks, but they've been showing up week in and week out, both in the WTRL TT on Thursdays and obviously the last Premier League. Have they done a top 5 ride? We'll have to see what kind of time they pulled on through as they cross the line, Dave.
All right, so we're going to update that leaderboard here at the finish line. Again, they are coming in hot at this point. PO Auto. And who are we picking up now? It is PO Auto. Here we go.
That is PO Auto. That is PO Auto.
And you can see that this is going to be a real... Okay, you got a new fast time without any doubt here. It's going to be... There's a rider who's had a sensational 2020 as Pedersen is across the line. We'll stop the clock, and I'm very interested to see. And just look a little bit north from Denmark, and you'd find Sweden. As a matter of fact, they're neighbors. Here we go, Nathan.
Last time I was looking here, I'm looking at a couple of the feeds, and there was a very tight race to the front. PO Auto, Venus, which you called out prior to the broadcast to actually be watching out for there, as well as Canyon Esports, Bolt Racing, all in the top 4, and they were only separated by 8 seconds, actually, the last time I was able to take a look across all the riders' live data. So interesting to see. We'll see how this plays out. Bolt Racing Team, we're within 3 seconds of that Canyon Esports monster dominating team. So will Bolt have pulled it off here? Because the last time, look at this, 3 riders. Hywell Davies needs to give it a little bit of kick here. I know he's got it here. Hug's got big wattage to give for an FTP, but it's going to be Davies, I think, that's going to actually lead it across the line if he's got his usual kick. But maybe there's nothing left here. Welling, do not slow down. Hug comes over the top now as Davies looks to come through, but it's the third rider. Welling's got to hang on. You know it's all on the line as they do not group up, because it's nothing left in the tank, Dave.
One of the best feelings in the world, better than passing a kidney stone, is coming across that finish line, because that means it is over. The pain is over. After you dig that deep, my goodness, you can only imagine what the riders are going through out here, Nathan. We're going to be now down into the final few meters here. And this is going to be, again, very, very close out here today. Evoke having a tremendous ride. Hodges, McGoldrick, Wally, Collard, and Thrall.
Now, it's interesting to see. I'm not seeing the same kind of big kick. Well, now maybe going to eat my words as Collard now comes to the line at 9.5. But this is into the sprint section. I'm not sure we've seen the same kicks toward the front. I think they've kept it very consistent in order to not drop too many riders, perhaps, as I do know that they have a very strong rider in Thrall that might be too much for some of the other riders. We'll have to wait and see what kind of time they're able to pull off here, though. But they were close at the last checkpoint, so maybe I'm eating my words here. They might have pulled this off. They were one of the teams that were within the top 10, within 10 seconds of the top 5 here still. So this is such a close race, much closer than I was expecting. Not the walkaway that we saw from Canyon Esports as well as Bolt Racing Team in the last race. Now it's going to be Swedish Zwift Richters coming up to that 1 kilometer to go point, and they're starting to get a little bit of separation. Brandlin and the rest just need to go if that last rider cannot hang back on.
You're right.
It's great to have them if they can punch through. Otherwise, let it go.
Nathan, at 1K, I sign off on that 100%. If he can get back up in the mix and help, awesome. But with 3, you can't wait at this point now. You press on. It's always tough. It's like being an explorer out there. You hate to leave anyone behind, but if it's for the better of the group and it's all about getting that fastest time coming off of the third wheel, amazingly able to fight back here. These Swedes showing a lot of heart, as now you can see the finish line is just up the road here.
Yeah, here we go. Brandlin now one of the strongest riders we've ever seen out on Zwift with big results. Frisk now pulling on through. Olsen, Noren at the back now and making her way back on. I don't think they slowed down for it either. I think he just clawed his way back to this race now, as it's going to be Frisk still pulling through. But I think Brandlin most likely going to lead it out. He's got the 858s on. What a sweet setup as you're seeing with that full disc wheel. And now actually going to third wheel here. So Brandlin obviously had laid already a lot at the line. Again, up and out of the saddle. They're going to punch the orange numbers. It's going to try and bring back every 1/10 of a second as they can, because it looks like it's going to be that close today, Dave.
Yeah, this is one of your top teams in the ZRL. Team Swedish Zwifters, Samuel Brandlin, as Nathan mentioned, one of the strongest riders in the sport, Johan Noren, Anders Frisk, Tobias Olsen, and Stefan Hopstadius. As they finish up, we're going to go back in now with the Saris, the pros closet. They've got three. Nathan, at this point, that's okay. It's three, the trinity here. A very strong group. Matt Brandt, Gavin Dempster, and Matt Cumming finishing there. I'll be very interested to see what these times. And now we're going to go back in. Look at this. It's Canyon Esports. They're down to three as well. It was an OSS day out on Watopia. Only the strong survived to make it to the finish line in our team time trials, and it's going to be the Duck out of Belgium, Lionel Viassen. Let's bring it home, Nathan.
What is going on? Alex West isn't here. Viassen must be having quite the day as he drops. It's going to be Phil Diner. Diner does not hardly ever has a struggle here, but Viassen and Mueller just pulling this team every last claw of a watt that Diner can get to the line, and it's going to be Viassen, I think, leading things out here. But with Alex West dropped, that's telling you that this was a monster effort. He must have been just sacrificing everything he possibly could, I would think, through those flatter sections of the course, because he is just a huge engine. But it's going to be the Duck leading it across the line here. They're current series leaders. Were they able to pull it off? I got a feeling, though, that today we may have an upset out here with only three across the line. Still waiting for the final results, but that was the last seed to go out on the course. So all the teams are in for the day. We're going to wait and see what the times are pulled off here. I have a feeling, though, we are going to have a change up here about who the dominating team is in the TTT, because that looked like a very close race. Bolt Racing Team, No Pins, R3R, Aero, PO Auto, Vetus, they were all involved, I think, at that top spot. And it was so close between so many teams.
Yeah, this course brought out the best, no doubt, Nathan. And I'd have to say, so Vetus comes in as the 9th ranked team in the ZRL after three races. They had to move way up the leaderboard here. I mean, I think at the worst, Nathan, they go out into the top 5, maybe even better than that, possibly the top 3 today. You know, they are crunching the numbers right now. So as soon as we hear anything about those results, just making sure, double checking, we want to make sure we serve them to you correct rather than quickly. We're going to go back and watch one of the early moments in the race right now. That's going to be the Skyline team, as they were just being caught and passed out here. And I believe that's AHDR rolling by.
Yeah, this was a struggle section for HDR. Remember, immediately after this, we did see a separation of the team, most likely from that passing. Jeffrey Creel had to try and weld it back together. Now we're seeing the Dutch Racing team overtaking Turbo, who had a struggle of a day here. Dutch Racing, they were in the top spot early on. They were overtaken, but Dutch Racing now, I believe, dropped out of the top 5, but we're an early leader, able to overtake a lot of these teams. Remember, with those 1-minute gaps, that's a pretty significant amount of time to be taken out, Dave.
Yeah, it really is. One thing that's for sure, the seeding process works quite well, as we only saw a few teams making that catch of their the team in the time trial. We'd call it your minute man. Here it's your minute team out there. So big day of racing out on the Magnificent 8. 29 kilometers, and it's done and dusted as everybody is now across the line, cooling down as we wait to take a look at the results. Again, a points-based structure. This is the team that's garnered the most points. They've actually never fallen outside of the top 2, Nathan, in our first 3 weeks of racing, sitting on 58 total points. So let's see what we have here today. And there it is, your breakthrough ride. Congratulations to Vetus Pro Cycling with a 36:43. That is not only your fastest time, it's your fastest time by 42 42 seconds. Out of this world. Congratulations to Vetus Pro Cycling, presented by Brother. It's going to be and look at this. The 5.1 watts per kilo is less than the 5.3 for the second place team, showing you how efficiently they rode. Whatever Vetus did is the way that everybody should be doing it. P.O. Auto for the silver medal in second. They, again, 42 seconds out. And then look at this gap now. Canyon Esports. So I'm going to hold on these times, to tell you the truth. We'll just go ahead and say Canyon Esports we have in third right now, Evoke in fourth, Saris the Pros Closet in fifth. It's going to be Arrow 6th, Bolt 7th, No Pins in 8th, Draft in 9th, and Callus in 10th. But Nathan, I have a feeling we're going to be looking at those numbers a little bit. It's actually, so you can see it's 42 seconds, or are we talking about 42? Yeah, I'll throw it to you, Nathan.
Dave. Half a second, Dave.
That's half a second.
So, yeah, that's how close it is.
So we had 7 teams within 10 seconds. That's absolutely amazing. Wow.
Yeah, so Vetus, though, you called it, Dave. You called it before the broadcast when we were chatting before the broadcast out here today a little bit about the top teams, and I said P.O. Auto. So at least I was close. But Dave, you called an in real life team making a huge jump if they were able to get it together. And Vetus ends up with a 36.43, half a second ahead of that P.O. Auto team that's been trying to put it together. They've been so dominant in the Thursday TTT. They finally been able to bring it into this Premier League now. Now Canyon Esports only 3 seconds back, though. As you're saying, though, this top 10 situation, wow, what a close race. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a race so close. And look at the watts per kilogram as well. Really? You want to tell me that this genre of cycling doesn't take technique? Look at those watts per kilogram, and the differences there say everything about, really, it does take a huge amount of learning the game and knowing the techniques, when to pull, how to pull. Absolutely crazy to see who is the best Zwifters on the planet when it comes to team time trialing.
I mean, I thought that was a bold statement to say that we'd have 3 teams within 10 seconds of each other at the finish. There were, I mean, that is as tightly packed in of a top 10 that you could ever imagine. I've never seen anything like that before. And after 29K, only half a second separating our top 2 teams. What a day. And Nathan, we promised you a double bill, so hold on, because we're only halfway home. We've got the women's race coming up next. Same course. I would expect the same quality of competition. It's been absolutely unbelievable out here in the Zwift Racing League. Stoke level very high. Nathan, if you don't think the team time trial can bring some excitement, I think there's a whole new world of racing for people to look forward to if you haven't already engaged in what we are doing out here.
Yeah, and if you're just joining us, this is week number 4 in the Zwift Racing League here on Zwift Live. There's also the ZRL Community Racing on Tuesdays as well. That's going to be happening for 4 different zones. We're talking APAC, EMEA for the European time zones, as well as the Americas tomorrow. So make sure to check that out. But there's also the reality that next up we have the women's racing for their second team time trial, as well as if you're not familiar with the week, quick little explanation. It's every other week. It's a points race the first week. Then the second week, it was a team time trial. Third week, it was a points race again. Now we're into our second team time trial. And we're about to head into the women's TTT for the day. Let's go ahead and take a look, though, at the race 3 highlights out on Richmond for last week from the women's race. Last week, obviously, we were out there on Richmond for 2 laps, and it was a 32.8 kilometer course. There were 8 points, 8 sprint sections out on course for points that they were contending for. The first one on that flat section that you did see, it was going to be No Pins R3R taking it down for those points out there. Then they were going to head on over toward Libby Hill, and it was Kristen Kolchinski on the attack, but then countered by Team Heino, taking down some points, who have been the absolute dominating team. Team 2020 with that new rider that's been one of the phenoms of the Zwift world. That was Kristen Kolchinski on the attack. Caroline Williams going for the attack into the final kick to the line, was able to take it across the line, though, for Team Heino, and they continued their domination with 20 points, 20 points, 20 points, and then another 60 total. Another win on the day. But chomping at the bit here, as you can see, Dave, 2020.
Yeah, let's take a look at our top 20 for the women. Hino sitting with a perfect score. They're bowling 300, as we say here in the States, right now with 60 points. Then it gets really close. 2020 on 54, just 2 points back to No Pins R3RE Racing Team. Then sitting in fourth, the Australians with Arrow at 49. Then you look at 46 points for I Race Like a Girl. Kiss Racing Team sitting in sixth. Cryo RDT in seventh. Evoke Bike presented by Insured in eighth. Team Swedish Swifters in ninth. And then rounding out our top 10 with 36 points is Saris, the Pros Closet. But it goes a lot deeper than that. Remembering the top two teams, the top bottom two teams are always going to be in threat of being replaced up in the Premier League here. But that's our top 10 for the women we're looking at. Hino, been so dominant this year, Nathan. You wonder, how can they continue this all the way? Can they win all 8 races? I guess anything's possible. That's a huge ask.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're going to see them winning all the races. We'll have to wait and see, though. I mean, they obviously, we've seen this before from them when they get really motivated. So we'll have to wait and see if this is going to stick, because in the community racing prior to the launch of the ZRL, for I would say a good year, they were the most dominant team when they wanted to win, when they were really showing up with their full squad. And now they've even stacked their squad a little bit more with the likes of Caroline Williams as well as Alice Lethbridge. So they're a very difficult team to try and beat just because of the pure talent. I mean, it's a monster team. It's a super team out there. So, but 2020, when it comes to racing, they're very motivated. I know that they've been doing so much homework. I know Nicola Cramner has been, doing all the math, figuring out all of the different ways and the tactics and the strategies, and putting the right team together to try and unseat Hino Racing. Also be on the watch out, though. I think that some of these other teams like Arrow, No Pins R3R, they're trying to put something together in a different way where they've got kind of these standout racers that are grabbing lots of points. They're grabbing lots of points across finish lines, sprint points, Queen of the Mountains as well. But trying to get the rest of the team to have a breakthrough as well. That's kind of similar to what we saw with Vetus, where it's like they got these standout riders, but what are they going to do as far as the rest of the team being able to catch up with that? We'll see if that's going to pay, if they're going to try and put something better together there with the rest of those teams with No Pins, Arrow, etc.
Well, for the women, for me, Nathan, the team to watch is Evoke. Much like we saw in the men's race with Vetus, I think they've got a lot of headroom to work with. These are the jerseys of the top teams in the Zwift Racing League. Without a doubt, this has been an absolute phenomenon. And get ready, buckle in. This is not a drill. Big Time Bike Racing is back. Is our team time trial for women ready to roll out? Nathan, they're going to be out on the exact same course here. 29 kilometers of racing, 131 meters of climbing. Not many teams are going to make it with the full 5-rider squad to the finish line. As a matter of fact, theoretically, losing a rider along the way, if you do it with the right technique, might be the difference for winning out here. Can Hino be beat? That's the question, as we're on the front end of what's going to be a thrilling hour of racing here.
Yeah, looking at another team I would be thinking about right next to the Hino Kit. So Hino Kit in the upper left-hand corner, as you can see, but watch out for that red with the H there. But Saros the Pros Closet, they did do some recruiting. Christy Tracy, one of the most avid Zwifters that you would see, she is on that team, very familiar with Zwifting, maybe going to be a good leader that's on there, be able to pull something off. 2020 lower right-hand corner, as you can see, very familiar Kit. Will the Charlotte Basket, Kristen Kolchisty, Resnikov be able to lead things away from the in real life crossovers? Jasmine During as well as Shayna Paulus, they had an amazing ride. One of the best rides we've ever seen from them in the Thursday TTT. Will they be able to pull something off out here today? I would be wanting to watch out because of that ride we saw on Thursday. We'll see if whether or not they can maybe pull something off here. I Race Like a Girl in purple there. No Pins 3R Evoke all next to each other in the upper right there as well. Be on the watch out for those teams. Those are the kits I'd also be watching out for. But there's plenty of kits out there, as you can see. As you saw today, Vita's coming out of nowhere. Anybody can make something happen that's done their homework. Let's go ahead and jump right onto the racing, though.
Well, if there's ever a team that would understand how all work, we're going to jump right in with Vixen here and Stephanie Sidlick, who, no surprise to see her on the climb, Nathan, up on the front, as she'll be trying to set a tempo here for the rest of the team to follow. Sidlick racing out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with a couple of Canadians here, Angie Buonassisi and Haley Gill. So they're also here up against it. Only 3 riders at the start.
Yeah, it's too bad to see that there's only 3 showing up on the day. It's going to be a tough ride. Maybe dropping a couple off from the get-go. I'll have to take a look at our start list here. But Stephanie Sidlick leading things out. That's going to be the rider that has the climbing legs. That's for sure. We've seen her do it time and time again. Does look like there's a little bit of communication going on there, getting Angie Bonassisi to come to the front and take over the top here. It's going to be a tough swap up, though. There's going to be a little bit of time loss because really it is about carrying momentum. You take that, you back off through that kind of a section there. It's not always the best tactic. The rider that heads to the front, unless there's an overtake at a very high watt per kilogram, not always the best tactic. We do see Sidlick now rolling through again. As I said, probably the strongest rider amongst it. She might even be held up a little bit with the type of rider that she is. I think she is a standout here who ends up in the final sprints a lot of times in the points. But again, it's a team game here, that's for sure. Now we've got Canyon Esports, as you can see here. Kristen Falk in the back, Gilles Donin, Claudia Barron, and Lejeune now out of France, taking over as they make their way up toward the Italian Village and the Sky Squirrel Fountain, Dave.
Yeah, when you're on these dirt sectors, for those of you that don't already, Zwift, a 3% grade probably feels more like a 5% grade out there right now. Is a little bit tougher. Lejeune doing a good job setting the tempo for this squad, really an international team here. Canyon, it's really nice to see not only do they have a strong men's team, strong women's team, they have development teams. They really have done a great job of helping grow the esports platform, and we're taking a look at a team that's finding their rhythm out here on course right now.
Claudia Baring, solid ride. Good to see her back in the world of Zwift racing for Canyon Esports here. It's been a little while since we've seen her in some of the community racing. I think as we head into winter, we'll see a lot more of her. Kristen Falk now making her way to the front, and now we're backing with Team Fearless now with Kona Bear making her way there to the front there, up and out of the saddle, 5 watts per kilogram, and that's what they're going to need, I think, on the women's side of things. 5+. Look at the grind here, up and out of saddle from Isabel Kona Bear as she looks to take on this 8 to 12% gradient, really feeling it from the smart trainer here as we now see Melanie King pulling through, and they're dropping a couple of riders. Those riders need to just really push through now to grab back onto those wheels because you can't really wait through these sections. Now, if Melanie King backs off just a tad, it will help the rest of the team here. They cannot drop riders at this point, but that's going to be one, like we said, whether or not you're all really matched for this climb is going to make the difference between 5, 10, 30 seconds even on this climb. You really got to bring a team that can climb this at a solid rate matched together.
Yeah, it throws a spanner in the works, that's for sure. It's the first pinch point, the real test that you see out on this course. As a matter of fact, more than half of the climbing that you see throughout this 29K of racing happens right in that sector. So getting through that cleanly, and actually Fearless doing a really good job here of getting things back together. I am really impressed, Nathan. Could have gone really poorly there, but they were able to bring this back together. I think they're going to survive this sector of the course and be in the hunt for a great ride today.
Yeah, King now leading things out as she took over at the front. Here's Team Turbo with McKay, Friested, Rambers, Hirup. I think this is a team that, been riding around mid-pack as of lately. We'll see if Gemma and the rest of the team here can make something happen because they definitely have the ability, I think, to take down a win out here today. As you do see now, Hirup now, Madsen taking over the front. Look at the grind here. Look at the difference, too. Everybody's got their own form. It's so interesting to see all the time as we do see them backing off a little bit too much, though. You need somebody with a punch to the front. McKay here now takes over, as you can see. There's 4.6 watts per kilogram, but it's not the speed I would have liked to see over the top of that section.
Don't sleep on this team. Turbo is a much better squad. I think they're the most underrated team, to tell you the truth, that we've got in this field here today. Not by you, Nathan, that's for sure. I think you're going to see a top 5 ride from these women. Helen McKay is a monster, no doubt about it. This team also has a tremendous amount of experience. Pound for pound, ounce for ounce. Again, I'm expecting a top 5 ride just like you Actually, I'm not sure if you said that, but I'm expecting a top 5 ride from these ladies here. I think that Fearless has got their best days ahead of them in this ZRL season.
Now we do see Peel here. It's going to be TFC. This is a team that's recently put themselves together to get into the Premier League at the top level. Good to see TFC well represented here. It's going to be Seal now taking over. Becky Seal now at the front at 3.3, 3.8 watts per kilogram. Again, though, the speed, I'm not sure it's going to be what it's needed for that top spot here. Now up in the 5.7, there we go. That's more like what we need to see at this kind of a section of the course here. I think they're just making sure that they're all together. But these moments where everybody kind of looks around and says, okay, is everybody here and everything? It's kind of one of those sections where you could have had a lot more speed, and it matters whether or not that you're just pushing on with the task at hand. Any of those times where everybody kind of tries to organize it, sometimes it can cause confusion a little bit. It needs to start to become second nature about who goes where, when, and how. And that's when you know that you've got a really good oil, and that everybody knows, like, well, if the pace isn't high enough at this moment, somebody just goes and they fill that gap at the front. So you do see them trying to stay organized here, which is good. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of communication going on here to say, how are things playing out? Whereas it's not necessarily second nature, just a reflex in the TTT for TFC at this point.
Yeah, well, communication is massive in a team time trial. There is no question that if you have a rider that's struggling, they need to communicate that. You need to work through some tough moments out there. So again, as we hang in here with TFC, we're going to be looking for our first time check coming up just a little before 10K. This is the team that Nathan was talking about a moment ago. Kai Takashita, racer out of Chicago, originally from Sapporo, Japan. Also famous for its beer. We were talking about Newcastle earlier. As you there's the aforementioned Christy Tracy. So this team has depth and experience as well when you look at Saris, the pros closet. And they're going to be looking to have an outstanding ride here today. There's the German rider Yasmin Welter. I mentioned the Japanese rider Kei Takashita. Polly Mason out of the United Kingdom, and then the Texan Christy Tracy there. Christy Tracy, the Swiss Army knife of bike racers. Go ahead.
She can do just about all of it, that's for sure. Good point there, Dave. Now, Polly Mason here leading things out. Solid kick up into that 5 watts per kilogram. As you can see, 178 beats per minute. You know, with the way that this team is organized right now and the way that everybody's pulling through with these short, sharp pulls at the front right now, and that it isn't just one or two riders leading over the top here, and with the high watts per kilogram that I'm seeing from them, either they're burning matches they don't have, or this is a team that has really got themselves together for this TTT. I have a feeling we're going to see something from them because of simply because of the way I see them riding this climb and the way that each of these riders are pushing through right now at the front. High watts per kilogram, high speed over and over again. No one rider kind of just dominating. So good to see Christy Tracy at 5.2 on the front here.
This is a team that does their homework. Going out and reconnoitering these courses is a massive advantage. You were talking about 2020. They've been doing a lot of that work. Well, this squad has as well, Nathan. There's no question that doing your homework makes a big difference. And it's not just knowing the course. It's we talked about knowing where riders should expect to be taking on a little bit more workload or looking for a little bit of help from their teammates. So this squad really also, Nathan, worth noting that they collaborate quite well with their men's team, sharing knowledge, cross-pollinating things. Works out really, really well for Saris the Pros Closet. There's a lot of great reasons why having teams in both races makes a big difference. Here we go, looking at some of these first splits coming in. So up from on the hill, Nathan.
Canyon Esports here, 15:03 coming through. I have a feeling the Saris the Pros Closet are going to smash that, and yes, they did. 41 seconds up from that because they just came through Canyon Esports. So huge amount of time taken back already by Saris the Pros Closet. This is what I was talking about. They've got something down here that we did not see from them in the last TTT. We haven't seen them show up too often to the Thursday TTT as well. So I have a feeling that we're going to have a surprise here, a little bit of an upset with Saris the Pros Closet having a really great time because they started so early, being a team that's further out of that top 5 situation in the league right now. But I have a feeling this might bump them up pretty good today and challenge for maybe a top 3 spot. We'll have to wait and see, though. Got a lot of riders coming through still.
So that's 41 seconds or 0.4 of a second. I got burned on that earlier. I'm trying to.
It's a good question. It's a good question. We'll have to wait and see.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure because last time that was 0.4 of a second, but now I am not sure. But I think it's 41 seconds.
It might be different though across the split board and the results board. So it might be a little different across the split board and the results board.
Yeah. Okay.
So
all right, we'll take a look. That's from
now to the top.
3 riders here for the Swedish teams. It looks like they're going to overtake. Is that TFC that they're catching here? It may be one of the riders coming out of TFC. This is the time check that we were looking at. Saris with a 14:22 earlier. We'll see. That puts. There you go.
So
I'm going to say 40 seconds. Yeah, so we'll use 40 seconds as the gap, right?
Point.
Yep.
So Cyrus the Pros Closet now, it looks like 14:22. It looks like Evoke now tied up here at this point. It looks like Evoke here tied up with Cyrus the Pros Closet. Team Swedish Swifters here, Canyon Esports now. It looks like 3rd and 4th place, 40 seconds back. As that is really interesting to see here now that it's going to be really a battle between Team Swedish Swifters and Canyon Esports for that 3rd place. But Evoke and Cyrus walking away with it. But we don't even have our top teams coming through yet. So still a lot of teams to try and take down this top spot as we've got the Cryogen now. This is one of your favorite teams here, Dave, coming to the top.
Yeah, working really well together right now as well. Nathan, I'm going to be really interested to see. So that 14:22 that both Saris the Pros Closet and Evoke have posted at this time check here as we're looking at the arch over our QOM right now. So that 14:22, if they're putting that up, what are we going to see from Hino? What are we going to see from Arrow? How about I Race Like a Girl? That team of triathletes should be really well cut out for this course here today. So we're going to keep looking at times coming in, but I don't think, Nathan, there's really no reason to expect that Saris the Pros Closet is going to have the fastest time at that check, although they might. If they're on an incredible day here today, it's not outside of their capacity to be that good, but you have to remember that if they are the fastest time at that check, we're looking at a turning point in the Zwift Racing League, that's for sure, is Hino, the last team to start. So, again, they haven't gone through that first checkpoint there at the QOM, but it'll be very interesting to see if they're quicker at the same time or behind what we're seeing from Evoke and Saris here. And also, Arrow should be very good out here today as well.
Yeah, we are seeing Krista Pohl here, Elite Gardner, Deborah Sluice Parker, as well as Sharon Bird getting to the top here. They were a pickup recently, Sharon Bird. Good pickup here for the KISS Racing team as they make their time over the top of the Queen of the Mountain now. We'll see what kind of time KISS Racing team is going to pull off. But Evoke, Cyrus, there it is. KISS Racing Team 17 seconds back. So Cryo RDT, KISS Racing Team, they're chomping at the bit here. We'll see on the second half of the course if they can try and pull something back from Cyrus and Evoke as we've got I Race Like a Girl chasing down. This is pretty close here. This is not very far back from the team we were just looking at, actually. So there is a monster ride coming from one of these teams. Not sure which one started first and who's making the catch, but there is not a big difference between what we just saw here from I Race Like a Girl and whatever team is right near them out here. I have a feeling it is I Race Like a Girl most likely taking things on here because they have been so strong in TTTs on Thursday, Dave.
Yeah, they really have. So this is a team, Meredith Kessler and Lenny Ramsey are just about to head over to Florida for an Ironman triathlon there. So they should have some very good form right now as they've worked Zwift into a big part of their success out there. That's going to be Meredith Kessler again that we're looking at moving up to the front. As this team, I'm going to be interested to see what this split comes in at. Again, Cryo just 16 seconds behind Evoke and Saris, who right now are deadlocked with the fastest time. And let's see here. There you are, 27 seconds back. So 27 seconds there, Nathan. As we look again, this is going to be Sisu. I Race Like a Girl. That's going to be Arrow.
Yeah, it's Arrow.
Now.
Arrow. Now, my question is: did Arrow make up the time on I Race Like a Girl, or did I Race Like a Girl almost being caught by Team Arrow? We'll have to wait for the next time check. If Team Arrow is making a catch here again, Dave, this is you. Who are you talking to? Do you have some sort of crystal ball? Because you had some amazing predictions prior to the racing out here. Team Arrow, an underperforming team perhaps, now showing up today and saying, look, we've done our homework, and an in real life team that's been able to transfer maybe a little bit better into Zwift, because I Race Like a Girl, mainly being this Zwifting TTT team, is almost being caught, it looks like, by Team Arrow. Interesting enough to see. No Pins 3R, Illy Gardner's team, one of the not Illy Gardner's, Lou Bates' team. Her and Illy Gardner have been going head to head a lot. Not a team that's been able to put it together as a team on total, but Lou Bates obviously grabbing lots of points and putting them in the top spots because of that. We'll see if they can pull something off here today as a team, though, if they're able to put something together and get some points overall.
Yeah, this team, Nathan, has some real depth, and I think Lou Bates deserves credit, much like Williams is one of the breakthrough riders of this season, without a doubt. So we're going to go ahead and take a look right now at this R3R team. And Nathan, this is another team that doesn't show up to race anything but climbing up on that podium. They bring their podium shoes with them to every race because they always are in that mix, and they're going to be back up there again today. So again, this team, they don't miss a step out there. When you look at this squad, it's going to be interesting to see when this one is done and dusted how they stack up. But I'm going to expect, again, this is a top 3 ride that we're looking at, no doubt about it.
Yeah, solid ride here from No Pins 3R, as you do see Lou Bates still taking over toward the front. Now a little bit of a super tuck. Here's the team, though. Vicky Nealon, Caroline Williams, Alice Lethbridge, Vicky Whitelaw, and Cecilia Hansen. The 3 juggernauts with the new pickups hammering away. As you see, Williams now pulling on through, and there's the speed. They have an interesting... What I find really interesting is that they use the blob format. They use the bunched up format so well when they pull through correctly. It's just really interesting that the differences that you see between each one of these teams, because I have a feeling that this team is so strong that they can kind of say, well, whoever is up next, yeah, they kind of communicate a little bit about it, but they always know almost instinctually, and they have the power and the matches to just close that down as far as that open spot at the front and then bring that momentum to the front. We see them come over the top here solid. We are seeing 5.2 watts per kilogram from Cecilia Hansen right now. We're not going to see quite where their watts per kilogram are as they're coming on the downhill here, but I have a guess that they were pushing 5.5 to 6 all the way to the top as Lethbridge pulls through with a solid kick. And you see how Lethbridge is taking speed in the downhill, not even resting, saying, no, we got to pull through and keep as much speed as we possibly can to pull everybody in through that momentum.
This is a team with nothing but legends. As a matter of fact, when you look at this squad, it's going to be hard to imagine. Now, that is a huge ask to think that it's possible, but they're already 3/8 of the way through the season. If they win here today, they'll have won every single ZRL event that they've competed in. They are that good. It is really hard to stay on top of the hill for as long as these women have, but they are not giving any quarter out here at all. 5 riders together, and Nathan, look how they're all well within their capacities right now. No one is overextended. As you said, it's interesting. We've talked a lot about the blob and the single file technique. Well, it takes an incredibly experienced team to ride in the single file technique. It is some very subtle moves that are required to be successful with that. The blob, it's kind of brute strength, to tell you the truth. No brain, no pain, as they say. Well, the blob technique would suit that style of riding. Just put the fastest riders on the front and continue to put fresh horses up there whenever they're ready to gallop. But this team operates, Nathan, at such a high level. And Heino putting on a clinic out here right now. Okay, they're going to be really, really hard to beat.
Interesting section of course through here. It's almost like climbing, actually, this section of course, because you don't get quite as much. You do get a draft, but because of the reality of that little bit of resistance that comes in from the dirt as well as the bridge. The draft isn't quite as great, so you almost kind of have to match the speed, or at least you have to be within about a watt per kilogram to a half a watt per kilogram of the speed of the front, of the effort of the front rider to hold that speed and even hold on. Back onto the pavement, now it's going to be a little bit different. They're going to be able to push right on through to the wheels here. Vicky Nealon, as you can see, up and out of the saddle, 5.7 watts per kilogram. Lethbridge sitting at 4.5. You can see where they're resting at. It's going to be 7.1 from Caroline Williams on the front. Amazing to see here from Caroline Williams. 157 beats per minute right now. Vicky Whitelaw trying to hold on. As you can see, the focus on the face at 182 beats per minute, up in that 6.1. Interesting to see as you see the matching of the watts per kilogram between some of the riders. So you can see how the differentiation continually happens between mainly two riders that are trying to hold that front section of the pack. So you have one rider kind of leading things out, one rider always closing the gap, and the rest of them kind of get that reprieve, as you can see at the back here. But Whitelaw, she must be beaten very high at 182. I wonder if she's having a tough day, if she just has a crazy high heart rate here, as we are seeing now 182, 3 watts per kilogram. Looks like backing off. This looks like a little bit of a moment here, though. Not exactly what I would expect as the momentum's coming down in the second half here.
Well, even the best teams are going to have a tough moment or two along the way. Actually, you're doing well if you only have a tough moment or two out here in the team time trial. Again, we're in with Heino right now. They're on a perfect run up till this point, but they are really being challenged out there today. The other teams are bringing the heat, that is for sure. So Vicky Whitelaw here is one of the riders that I think, Nathan, probably naturally, you can see her heart rate coming down a little bit right now. Again, you can see these riders really, they have such a high threshold here. As it's amazing when you look at these in-camera shots of considering the workload that they're doing, how comfortable they look while doing it. I guess in this sport, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. These women really do define that.
As you see Whitelaw now sitting in a little bit here, as you see the heart rate come on down, it looks like she's getting prepared to try and take on a pole for herself. I think Cecilia Hansen on the front pushing a solid 5.5 to 5.8 watts per kilogram. That's huge numbers there. You know, those are, they're probably cruising around here at about 48 kilometers per hour, I would think, right now. 47, 48. Getting some ride-ons. You give each one of these riders ride-ons, and Vicky Whitelaw now takes over at the front. 6.1 watts per kilogram as she bursts on with some speed. That's going to bring them up almost to that 50K, actually, as she takes over. And that's the way to do it. This little bit of a burst and then just hold on to the speed with a little bit of a back off, as you do see, again, that two rider up and the three just kind of blobbing at the back, recovering as best they can until the next rider pulls right on through. Tons of momentum pulled through there. Solid kick there from whoever just took over. That's how you do it. And look at the second rider. Close the gap down for them to make sure that it does not go out and the speed doesn't have to come down, because that second rider is actually giving as much or a little bit more and then gets a little bit of rest. It's, that is so perfectly done there. Very well mapped out as far as the strategy goes, because it really, I'm learning from my own TT experience. It's not necessarily just the front rider that's doing their tactic at any kind of moment about taking poles and welding things together. The second or third rider does their job as well to weld things together. Now Bates on the front. No pins here, Dave.
Well, another team that's in the mix, in the hunt for a big win here. This is the squad that I think is putting as much pressure on Heino as they could possibly imagine here. I'm not sure what the Heino split was at that Queen of the Mountain. I'm curious to see how they compared to the best times that we were looking at. So we'll stay here with No Pins R3R.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what things are going to be for Heino versus No Pins R3R. R3R here now maybe going to be having a solid ride, but, again, you don't see the straight line at the front here. That's something that we're starting to notice, amongst some of the teams that may be slowing down a little bit more than they need to, perhaps. So we'll have to wait and see if that is something, as we start to see a trend amongst these riders. Decker now pulling on through the German rider, and it's not quite the same momentum and speed pulling to the front. Walter's most likely going to back. Nope, Walter's now coming on through. Will she back off? Is it her turn? Looks like, is it confusion? No, it's going to be Walter's turn as she makes her way to the front. Decker going to have to close that down. But it doesn't look like they're super organized at this point.
Yeah, and Nathan, I think this is the point where it starts to get a little bit ragged out there. You start seeing some riders that are in trouble, and the riders that are strong will sort of need to start asserting themselves and taking those longer pulls, as we're in with a team that looks very well put together right now. Jumping in with TFC, Jackie Ciampi, Becky Seal, Marina Larson, Claire Armstrong, and Hannah Peel. Larson, Peel, Ciampi, and Seal, the riders that have remained in the group right now. Talking about TFC here.
Getting some numbers starting to come through on the back end a little bit as I look at some of the live data coming on through. And I believe that we do have Heino leading out. We haven't taken a look at 2020 yet. I think that they are going to be Team 2020 challenging a little bit. Not as close as what we saw, though, over on the WTRL TTT on Thursday. We'll have to wait and see if those numbers do come up here. But Emma Belfort, Jessica Edqvist, and then Anna Swadström, only 3 with the Swedish Zwift riders. Not challenging, I think, today because of the limit. They're actually being caught, it looks like, by a team from behind here. Tough day, though, for Belfort.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Nathan, behind them now, is that Heino? It might be. We'll see. It's obviously a red jersey that you're looking for with the Heino team. Just a little bit far back to make out the jersey color right now. But, and again, we've talked about the disadvantage with 3 riders out here. And with a decent amount of racing to go, you're down to 3 way earlier. If you're inside of that last couple K, 3 riders, you press on. But for these teams now, there's a little bit, a lack of wiggle room, I guess you'd say. This should be Evoke that we're looking at now. Also down to 3 here.
That's Evoke. They're catching Swedish Zwift riders, actually.
Yeah.
So interesting to see. Keller, Rick Trova, and then Nguyen there trying to make the catch.
Yeah, that's V Win, the Vietnamese rider who currently lives in Seattle, along with Monali Keller, an outstanding talent. They actually work together at Microsoft, and then Jana Riktrova is a Czechoslovakian. That would show you I'm about 30 years out of date. The Czech rider who lives in Texas now. So only 3 riders, Nathan, but 3 big engines. And now we get a look at the monster squad. This is going to be 2020 with Jasmine During, the bronze medalist in the 2 different Olympiads, Rio and London. She's waiting for Tokyo. Kristen Kolchinski, one of the breakthrough riders of the 2020 season. Charlotte Backus, the Israeli athlete, Antonina Reznikov, and then Shayna Paulus up on the front. Nathan, we've talked a lot about this team. They've been hungry. They've been getting better and better every week. Let's see what kind of a run they can make at it here today on a course that suits the team quite well.
Looks like they've been doing their homework as During takes a kick at the front up into 6 watts per kilogram. That's exactly what she needed to do through that section. That was a 2% uphill gradient. You saw Charlotte Backus get up and out of the saddle at exactly that time, anticipating that little bit of a kick over the climb. What a momentum kick. Kolchinski, look at Kolchinski. Calm and cool as a cucumber here, as you can see. Now pulling through, though, that is a mistake right there, though, as you saw that. That is not momentum. That is a back off. It wasn't her turn, but she should have continued at the front. That's instead of backing off and allowing During to come through, she should have just continued and forced During to do more watts or don't come through. That right there, in my opinion, what needed to happen there. It doesn't matter whose turn it is. If your avatar is at the front, you keep the speed and then you force the rider's turn to come through. And if they don't, and then their turn's over, their turn's over. The next rider pulls on through. And Backus, knowing exactly what happened there, goes to the front, takes over with a kick and a little bit of surge, because she is definitely is the most experienced amongst all these riders when it comes to a TTT.
And look at Reznikov now following through here. So it's almost like they can hear you, Director Nathan, in their ear, because Nathan's exactly right. This team is now finding their rhythm once again. But there is no question that, so Charlotte Backus comes to this team, used to be on the Turbo team. She was brought over not only for her engine, but the knowledge that she has is specifically for this team time trial discipline. She's up racing in Park City, Utah. This team is absolutely killing it. We're back in with Evoke right now. I was expecting V Win to be a nice addition to the team time trial squad. And boy, is she backing this up. V-Win is like a cocktail napkin with an outboard motor attached to it. She's a tiny rider with a huge engine. And right now, she is absolutely drilling it here. So the Vietnamese Express here making the catch. And watch this, Nathan. That is like a hot knife through butter. You'll never see a cleaner pass than that. Not one draft was given, as they say.
Yeah, we are seeing some splits coming right on through here as we win Rykova and Keller with only 3 riders making catches, though. Quite the ride here coming in from them. We'll see what they're able to pull off as we are not seeing them on the top leaderboard just yet through split 4, but I don't think that they've made it to that section.
There they are.
Oh, excuse me. No, Evoke is there. Excuse me. No, they are. My mistake. Good call there, Dave. Evoke is only 2 seconds back, actually, from Sarsa Pro's Closet with only 3 riders. And Sarsa Pro's Closet, we saw them such a well-oiled machine, have done their homework. 30-17. This is going to be an interesting race to the line here, Dave.
Holy cow, we still are waiting for 2020. We're still waiting for a few of the big teams out here. This one, just like the men's race, I mean, Heino still hasn't put in a time either. Let's see what we've got. So right now, we're jumping in with 2 riders. Where's the third? Obviously. So we need that third rider, Nathan. There's no way around this. You can't ask for an exemption on that. So we'll figure out what's happening there. Jana Rykova there on the front. Monali Keller, V-Win. I love the ride that Evoke is having here today. This is what you call punching above your weight in the team time trial. The Vixen,
I believe
looks
Vixen now coming to the ride. Interesting to see. We'll see if Stephanie Sidlick is still here and how many riders they were dropping off because they were struggling early on. But solid kick to the line as you see Velocity Vixen making their way across. We did see Vision a moment ago. It's been interesting. Maybe there was a dropout. Maybe there was a mechanical because they did show up with enough riders on the day. I don't think Vision's the type of team that would just let a rider completely go. Now back in with 2020, Kolchinsky leading things out there with those huge watches she's got now. Reznikov, those are the 2 pickups here. They've really been the monsters when it comes to the power out here. Is the experience there, though, for this type of TTT? Now it's going to be back as Paulus and then During on the back. Let's take a look at the numbers. Look at that 6.2 from Kolchinsky. Wow. As she pulls through. That's going to be a monster speed as you see the other riders struggling a little bit here as they come on through underneath this banner right now.
Kolchinsky is the most motivated athlete that I have come across in the sport. I mean, nobody works harder than Kristen Kolchinsky. As she is an absolute beast. As she, look at her flogging herself like a rented mule on the front. This is a huge pull from Kolchinsky. This is a difference maker. No doubt about it. If they're going to win, let's remember this moment in the race is Kristen Kolchinsky is still up on the front. You mentioned Antonina Reznikov. If Reznikov, Nathan, can follow up this Kolchinsky pull with something similar, they just might win this bike race here today. This is exceptional right now from 2020. And you've got to remember, Jasmine During, Charlotte Backus, and Shayna Powers are riding out of their skin right now. Boy, 2020 is showing you that if you want to get better at something, you have to work at it. And in order to win, you have to risk losing. And these ladies are not afraid of that risk. As look at Shayna Powers, Nathan, right on cue, taking over on the front. They're definitely following the Guerra formula.
Yeah, this is solid. That pull through there was perfectly timed. They didn't waste any time getting Paulus on the front. She came through with momentum immediately to 5.6 watts per kilogram, as you can see. Kolchinsky right to the back. Reznikov holding second wheel. She's the glue. She glues it together. That was her job, actually, there. As you see Reznikov continually making sure that everyone behind her always has a draft to grab onto as Paulus pulls through. Very interesting to see how they put this together. Now, Backus here to second wheel. As you do see those 3 just kind of changing spots continually, always just trying to grab, hold on to that draft with Paulus, not coming through too much here. And we're about to leave the Fuego Flats here into the Titans Grove turnoff to Ocean Boulevard. The climb, that's a 3% gradient off of this flat. It's a very important section. This is a section where they could make up some time. They might even want to drop a rider, like let a rider just give everything they got at this point, because I do believe Heido does have a time gap on them.
Nathan, I agree with you, and Jasmine During, I think, is doing exactly what you said. Go ahead, Jasmine, and bury yourself on the front and try to launch that team into a win. It's going to be awfully hard to beat Heino. We all knew that coming into this one, Nathan, but in order to do it, you're going to have to go big. I mean, Kulczynski has been a wattage blowtorch out here, but your assessment of Reznikov, that might be the most impressive ride of all. Look where she has sat, keeping the team, as you said. She's the glue that's kept this whole thing together. The Canadian Olympian, the bronze medal winner, During, taking a huge pull now, and they are just about to catch the R3R team, Nathan, is what I'm hearing over comms right now.
Yeah, R3R only a little ways up there. There's Lou Bates trying to hold it off. Decker pulling through. This is the left-hand turn out of Titans Grove. It's going to be a downhill section. They're going to be looking for a little bit of reprieve, but I have a feeling that 2020 are going to come through like a freight train, holding on to speed all the way through. During is pulling. They can almost see them, and because of that, when riders get in sight, they're in mind at that point, and you really get motivated. This is at the back. Paulus Kulczynski pulling through. Here's Helen McKay pulling her Team Turbo across the line for their finish, as they stayed together with 5, so it might be a solid time. We'll see if they stayed organized on the day as we take a look at the finish line, and the times may be coming in here in just a second. As another team coming across, that's going to be Fearless. Team Fearless coming on through.
Oh, all right. There you go. Thank you, Nathan. So Fearless finishing, let's say, 52 seconds back of TFC. The fast time right now of 42:45 at the finish line. More teams, so that maybe that was Saris coming through. 40:59.
That might have been Saris. Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah, 40:59 fast time for Saris, the Pros Closet. Canyon. Canyon at 1 minute back, and then TFC at 1:46, 2:38 to Fearless, and Turbo at 2:41 is how we have our first 5 teams up on the board now.
Saris the Pros Closet, I do believe they are having a very solid ride on the day out here today. That's a full minute, and we did see that organization early on. We saw a solid time, 40 seconds up or so, when they came over the Queen of the Mountain. So I have a feeling that they're going to challenge for a top 5. I don't think that they're going to be there, though, when it comes down to Heino 2020 Evoke type situation. Well, maybe be able to challenge Evoke. Evoke only with 3. It looked like Saris the Pros Closet did come across the line with quite a few riders here and kept it glued together. So they did look very well organized. Their Zwiftcraft may pay off over Pure Watts here from 3 riders in Evoke.
Yeah, it's interesting, Nathan. Would you rather have 4 good riders or 3 very good riders, right? I mean, that's a valid question here. But 3 motivated riders is what we're looking at for Evoke. This is going to be R3R with 4 motivated riders here bringing it on home. Interesting. Okay,
now we do see Reznikov here now taking over as they head into the downhill into the Ocean Boulevard. This is one of the sections that's interesting. What do you do? A lot of times it's all about kicking into the downhill with as much speed as you can as you enter it. A little bit of a grind into the downhill, the first part of it, but then a reprieve, because you're not necessarily going to gain much more after that initial kick. But if you don't kick into it, you can waste a lot of energy on the downhill pulling all the way through. Vanderplas is now with this no pins. They're being chased. They can see it too. They will see 2020 behind them in the riders nearby, and they're going to be like, just hold on. And that's the motivation as we see Swedish Swift riders crossing the line with 3.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing, if you are Heino, is you want to have 2020 chasing a carrot, right? I mean, that's it's not any kind of illegal advantage, but it's an advantage, that's for sure. When you look at women who are as competitive as these athletes, all you need to do is tell them they can't or give them a goal, and they will crush. And I think we saw Evoke finishing a moment ago, actually. I think Evoke already across the line, and there it is. So they're saying that's the same time as Saris the Pros Closet. Okay, and Canyon Esports 1 minute back, 1:18 to Team Swedish Zwifters. So there's 7 teams across the line now. Interesting.
That is amazing. If they are on exact same time, I mean, and I believe we go out to a 1/10 of a second.
We go out to 100th of a second normally, so that. Yeah.
Yeah, 100th of a second. So if we're out to 1,000th of a second in the time difference, we'll have to wait and see if perhaps there's maybe just less than a 1 second difference there between them. And that's what's going on there. Now it's going to be Resnikov taking over at the front. Backus at second there. Paulus during Kolchinski now, as though Resnikov taking a pole here, and that's one of the top power riders there on the course right now. Resnikov starting to bunch up a little bit there, which tells me it's slowing down a tad, though, at the front. It's a time for another rider to take over, as now we're jumping in. I believe that's going to be Blue Kiss Racing Team, perhaps, if we're going to get a closer look there, but with a solid ride with 4 riders still all together.
All right, well, they are within sight of the finish line now. It won't be long, as the pain will be over, as 4 riders together. That's ahead of the average at this point, I would say, today. When you add the men's and the women's races together, there have been a lot of teams that have been down to the bare minimum of 3 riders. So let's bring them across the line here. It looks like Kirsten Pohl will be, along with Bird, across the line first. We're back in with 2020. They might be, along with Heino, the only 2 teams. I have a feeling maybe I Race Like a Girl, also with 5 riders still together. R3R now, 4 at this point.
Hey, what's interesting with this team is we've seen Lou Bates. I mean, yeah, that's all we say, right? Lou Bates on the front, just leading that team. Again, we said she was so strong that she has kept that team in the league so far with all the points she's been able to collect. But when it comes to a TTT, it's about everybody on the team taking some poles, everybody making the race here. Bree Vine coming on through, Justine Barrow, Bree Wilson, and Jacobs now, as you see 4 riders for Arrow. And I think they're having a solid ride here today, as we do see R3R here making their way to the line. Kolchinski and the rest right on the heels. We'll see if they can sprint it to the line with them here. I think they're super motivated to just shut this down.
Well, and Nathan, this is the one moment where you couldn't find a better time to be closing in on a team, because no one's going to hold it against you if you're using the draft in the final 100 meters. That's not your fault. So they should be able to ride right up into R3R as we take a look. I think that was I Race Like a Girl finishing there. Back in now with R3R, however.
The Bates. Yeah, Bates
and
here.
Lou does not want to have anything to do with 2020.
Yeah, she's just pulling away from him here. Walters now, as you do see, but Resnikov trying to shut it down. But I think Bates is going to lead it to the line. I don't think that they're going to actually make a catch here. Are they the second team back, though? That's going to be the question. Like, is that a 2-minute gap they've closed down? Because Kolchinski and the rest are having a solid walkaway ride, but 2020 and Heino, we haven't seen Heino or any times from them yet. We'll have to wait and see. Is it going to be 2020 or is it going to be Heino, as Bates here continues to lead this team to the line?
Yeah, I'm curious how that Arrow time was, as this will be a good ride. They've done a lot of work to get to this point, and I think, Nathan, we're into the pay dirt stage now for 2020. We'll see how that one's going to stack up. I believe Heino is out on course. Outside of Heino, I think we might have everyone across the line. Still looking for a cryo
2020
team.
2020 was the...
if this is Heino, that's not a good sign for 2020. Well, Heino, that's way under a minute. So my math tells me that Heino gets this one then, just based on what I saw, not based on actual times. I think we'll take a look as soon as they have it ready for us, Nathan, at the leaderboard here. But I think Heino got it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, it looked like that was not a whole lot of time, as you did say there. I mean, we could count the seconds on maybe 2 hands, it looked like, between when 2020 and then Heino came across the line. There's just so much strength in the team. There is a reality, as we said, in the men's racing as well, how many... in a TTT, just having pure raw strength. It's a super team. Heino's almost unstoppable. I thought maybe after we saw what happened on Thursday with 2020 versus Heino in the WTRL TTT, that maybe, it was within that 1 second actually at the finish line, but unable to, it looks like so far from what we are seeing, pull something off here as we go ahead and take a look at some replays. We see Kiss Racing Team making the way over the top here, being led out, it looks like, for their Climb was one of the decision-making points then. There is no pins, R3R. Decker taking a pull at the front, it looks like, with Lou Bates. For the one time, we'd see a little bit of rest coming in from Lou Bates, actually. But I think Bates was really trying her best to pull her team across that line as quickly as they possibly can. There's Team Hio, the juggernauts of Zwift Racing and the women's side of things. The fastest women's team out on Zwift at this moment by far. And here are the results, Dave.
Yeah, let's go ahead. And I unfortunately can't quite read that from here. I apologize. Looks like a 39:12, I believe, with 11 seconds back to 2020. I'll throw it to you, Nathan. Let's go full screen.
Yeah, it's going to be a 39:12 followed up by 31 seconds back to 2020. Then Arrow 107 back. No pins, R3R 126. For fourth, SARS the Pros Closet 147. Tied. It was same time. So we're going to have to go to the thousandth of a second. That is amazing there, Dave. Evoke and SARS the Pros Closet 147, Dave. Same time.
Wow. Well, the question coming into today was, can Hino be beat? The answer's not today, at least, as they'll make it 4 out of 4 for a perfect 80 points in our 8-race Zwift Racing League season. So we hit the halfway point. They have been untouchable when you talk about Hino, but 2020 continues to come on strong, and these ladies aren't afraid of doing their work. It's 31 seconds back. Arrow in third, no pins for fourth. Sarah's the Pros Closet. They do find the top 5. Evoke with only 3 riders for most of the day, ending up in 6th. Cryo RDT in 7th. Kiss Racing gets up into 8th. I Race Like a Girl into 9th. And then Canyon Esports rounding out our top 10. The gap only back to 247 for our top 10 teams here today in the Premier League of Zwift Racing League. What a day it has been out on the Mag 8, Nathan.
Yeah, it's been absolutely awesome here. Magnificent 8. What a difficult course. It brings a little bit of everything at you, I think, in this for this course. You know, the reality of all of the climbing that is out on course. Then it's got all of the just motoring freight train sections through the flats, Fuego flats. They're really telltales whether or not you've got your TTT tactics, knowing this genre. That's one thing I keep coming back to over and over again. If you have not done a TTT yet, check it out. You know, on Thursdays, we've got one of the largest, racing leagues in the world when it comes to the TTT, as well as obviously the ZRL that's happening on Tuesdays. Being able to jump into one of these and learning that, wow, there is an amazing genre of racing that takes a huge amount of experience and tactic. Getting in with some teammates, it's one of the funnest times you can possibly have.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the men's standings here as we wrap up round 4 of racing in the Zwift Racing Leagues. I hear they're ready to go. Fresh off the presses for us here as Canyon Esports with 76 points. Sarah's the Pros Closet in second with 71. PO Auto moving up after a great ride today. PO Auto Ceramic Speed just 1 point ahead of Evoke Bike, presented by Insured, who are sitting in 4th right now. Boy, look how close this is. 60 points for Bolt Race Team in 5th. Swedish Swifters in 6th now. Then Vitus Pro Cycling, who had an incredible ride here today. They started in 9th. They've moved up now to 7th in the season. Callis Esport Racing Team sitting 8th on our table. Draft in 9th. And Arrow rounding out our top 10. That's a good look. Some changes happening there slowly but surely. The cream rising to the top in the men's league table.
Yeah, interesting to see there. Pio Auto making it happen, taking that second place and jumping up, as well as Evoke jumping up a little bit. But then, the ride of the day from Vitus there, that's a big jump in points. They didn't have 15, 16, 17, nowhere in the top 5 at all. And then all of a sudden a win. You watch out. Maybe we might see some motivation. Wait, this can be done. This feeling that might start coming across, like, you start winning, it can kind of make you really hungry too. Dave? So pretty cool to see from Vitus there. And it's also cool to see that some competition starting to happen there. It's not just a walk away. It's going to keep things hotly contested as we are going to look at the women's now for the league standings.
Yeah, you could feel things tightening up, no doubt about it. Well, after an incredible day of racing, our second team time trial out here on the Magnificent 8, Hino does not miss a step. They are perfect with 80 points now. Hino Race Team, the leaders, but they're coming for you. 2020. Another great ride today. 73 points sitting in second. No Prince R3R E-Racing Team. They're just 4 points back right now. In third, 2 points ahead of Arrow, who had a great day and move up as well here. So the Australians are continuing to keep the pressure up. Then you look at I Race Like a Girl sitting in fifth. They're 1 point ahead of Kiss Racing Team. In sixth, who are 1 point ahead of Cryo RDT, who are 1 point ahead of Evoke. Look at how they're stacking that up like cordwood right now in our top 10. Then you go back to Saris the Pros Closet sitting in ninth. Team Swedish Swifters rounding out our top 10. But you can see that these battles in between 8th and 3rd are going to be in actually make it this incredible series all the way to the line. Now you start to wonder, though, how long can Hino keep a perfect streak going?
What a close race there for that top 5 spot. Only 1 point difference. There's going to be some really motivated women there for those teams to try and grab a top 5. I Race Like a Girl is also eyeing up 4th place, though. It's not too far off. Then it's really cool to see Team Arrow getting involved there for those, those top spots as well. Again, 19, 19, 19, 20, 20, 20, these last 3 races. So, at the top there, Team 2020 as well as Hino, they're battling it out for that top spot. Maybe a couple of these other teams will start trying to get there, maybe some upsets, but really I think it's a battle there for second. And then first, it might be getting out of reach at this point because Hino just seems unstoppable. With 3 second places, though, if 2020 can put something together in the second half of the season, maybe. But really, juggernaut is Hino in the women's racing, Dave.
I agree, Nathan. One of the things that's going to make this series great is the way the points table was set up, meaning that no one team, even with 4 wins in a row, it's not over. We still have 4 races to go, and you don't know what's going to happen here. It's not only 2020. There's a few teams that are still in with a shot at it. So Hino's going to have to keep on their A game out here. It's going to be a fantastic next 4 races.
So everybody, if you're wondering when you can get involved in racing and more racing to come, well, tomorrow night over on Zwift Community Live, we're going to be bringing you all the community divisions for that Epic League. It's got 4 different time zones. We've got APAC, we've got EMEA, and the 2 Americas. You can check those out. So make sure to tune in for those over on Zwift Community Live, each racing in their own time zones across A, B, C, and D categories. So divisions for everybody at every racing level. Next week, though, we're going to be back for more points racing. They're going to be on the Everything Bagel New York City. That is a hard course, Dave, for points racing. That's going to be Matt Stevens and Hannah Walker on the comms for that. And then also we're going to be doing World of Zwift again to be rehashing everything that's happened across the board when it comes to the Community League, the Premier League, as well as a look forward. We've got Kristen Armstrong for the Coaches Corner for analysis of the races. And then me and Dave and a few others are going to be jumping in and giving their analysis across the community and the Premier League. It's going to be great, Dave. Dave, this has been a lot of fun for the TTT. This is also one of the most fun races every single week, and really pushing of the platform in such an awesome way.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. I can't wait to be out with all of our community racers tomorrow. That's the best part. We get this nice preview today, and then tomorrow we all get a crack at it. So enjoy yourselves out there, everybody. Ride on.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.